Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
Would you mind telling everyone a little bit about your background and kind of your, maybe we'll talk a bit about your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, sure. My background is in social impact work or charity.
Okay.
But right now I have a boutique consultancy that helps people with their social good. And we're a one-stop shop for all things anyone would need to try to make a difference in the world. So we do everything from strategy, consulting, advising. We do fundraising, event production, creative work, marketing, influencer acquisition, PR. It's like, basically, like I said, a one-stop shop. So
kind of the whole umbrella
when someone wants to make a difference in the world.
That's amazing. So how would that usually look like? So a charity would come to you and say, we want to host an event or we want to do a fundraiser, and then they're like, please help us, and you orchestrate the event and the marketing and everything for it?
Yeah, so that's one great example because there are so many services we provide. So our clients include high net worth individual families that want to give back and they want to decide who to give to, or a celebrity who wants to start a charity, or existing charities, or even major multinational companies that want to help with their corporate social responsibility, give back, and how to structure that. We also work with for-profit companies that are social enterprises that are making a difference in the world. They're scalable and sustainable, and so our clients kind of run that range of. It's kind of oftentimes people are like, oh, so you just work with charities? Well, we absolutely we've worked in my career with hundreds of different organizations, either on meta campaigns we've created, or as clients, or as beneficiaries, or there's a bunch of different ways. But we actually work with for-profit companies, high net worth people, and people from the entertainment industry too.
Okay. Yeah. So for you, how did you get into this? Like, how did you get started?
Yeah, that's a great question. I started out in college in an internship. So I knew that I wanted to spend my life making a difference. I knew that I loved doing service, and I wanted to do that and travel. Those were the two things I knew, was to help people and travel. That was basically the extent of it. So I found a local nonprofit in Utah where I was going to school, and just started interning and became a relied upon volunteer, so much so that they created a whole job description for me, and then hired me right out of college. And I had my dream job.
They weren't letting you go after that.
Yeah, it was big. Yeah, I think that's a big thing, like young people, as they consider what they want to do, like, while you're in college, intern, get in the door and provide value and become indisposable, and amazing things can happen. And the internship led to this job. The job was doing development work on the ground in third world countries. So I was traveling to Mexico, Thailand, Peru, Kenya in my early 20s, traveling to remote jungles where they'd never seen white people, and helping people get clean water or build a school, or medical dispensaries, and it was just like a dream come true. I loved it so much. But then in 2009, I got pregnant with my first son. And 2008 actually, I'm sorry, he's 11 now. I gave birth to my first son, and I didn't want to trek malaria-ridden jungles anymore. I wanted to be a mom and be home with my baby. And so I pivoted and changed into doing event production and campaigning and administrative side of charity. And so then I went into working for a nonprofit on that side of business. And then it moved later into consulting. And then consulting multiple nonprofits. Then I built an agency. Now I have a team that helps service a lot of different clients.
Yeah. For you, what was kind of like the moment where you decided, like, I'm going to go from working like for someone to kind of like consulting and making your agency? Like, what for you made it so that you pivoted to do it under yourself? Because that's, I think, what scares a lot of people.
Yeah, mine's a funny story. I was, so one of the things where my career took a real trajectory was when I was in college. I put on music concerts to raise money for causes I cared about, and they started out with like local artists, and then I went to national touring artists, and it was really fun, and I loved it. So I kind of got a name for myself as the charity concert lady, and people would call me to come put charity concerts on. And I had produced a music festival in Perth, Australia. My husband's from Queensland. called the End of Polio, and we ended up having a really unique strategy. It was an incredible story, but we ended up, as a result of our campaign and concert, leveraging $118 million for polio eradication from this one concert.
Wow.
And at that concert, I worked with some really big names, one of which was Hugh Jackman, the actor. Okay. And Hugh and his wife, Beverly Furness, became my friends. And at the backstage of the next year, I did a festival in Central Park. Mm-hmm. And during the weekend of the United Nations General Assembly meeting, I executive produced a music festival called the Global Citizen Festival.
Okay.
And Deb and Hugh were actually hosts, and they were very, very supportive. And backstage at the festival, Beverly Furness asked me, so this is Hugh's wife, will you come help me do this for orphans? And I realized right then and there, I wanted to keep doing what I was doing with Global Citizen, but I also wanted to work with her, and so that's how I started my agency.
Okay, because before that...
It was just me doing it just for my client, individual, in that time just one client, full-time. And then the Jackmans were the reason I started my consultancy.
That's really cool. So, super interested about that first concert you did in Australia, because obviously that was probably a pretty pivotal point for you, where you saw how huge of a scope it could be.
Yeah.
What was tell me the story about that concert. What was the marketing, and how did you kind of like go about producing that?
It was such an amazing story, and because I got cold called by this little nonprofit I'd never heard of called the Global Poverty Project. They sent me an email and said, will you come produce a music festival on the eve of CHUGM, which is the Commonwealth Dignitary World Meeting.
Okay.
So all these prime ministers and presidents of the Commonwealth, including the Queen of England, were converging in Perth, Australia.
Okay.
I lived on the other side of Australia in Queensland, and they said, we want you to put on a music festival. And I didn't even know who they were, and I didn't really know what, but I got on a phone call. And as they talked to me about their idea, they wanted to leverage funding from the Prime Minister of Australia. At the time was a woman named Julia Gillard, out of the foreign aid budget. They wanted to get to raise money for polio eradication. And what was so cool about, I can't take credit for the strategy, it was utterly brilliant. But what was so funny is they said, we want to put on this concert, and and we think it could be a major impact. And I thought, first of all, polio, isn't that already eradicated? Why polio? And they went on to explain to me that it was a very thoughtful, bipartisan thing to approach, because it's an infectious disease. And yes, it's 99% eradicated, but if we don't finish that last 1%, it's an infectious disease and can come back.
Right.
And, there's very few things in the world that we can cross off the list to be done with. Mm-hmm. We've only ever eradicated as human beings one disease, smallpox. So to eradicate polio in this 11th hour was very inspiring. Mm-hmm. It's like landing on the moon type of a moment.
Right.
And so I wanted to get behind that. I thought that was smart, a low-hanging fruit in the development sector to make a difference. The second thing was their strategy was so genius. Instead of relying upon ticket sales, merchandise, sponsorship, and donations, which is what I had done in my past events, and I'd only ever raised $1 million at an event at that date, which was a lot of money to raise for a charity in one event. But for them to say, well, no, we're not going to look at profit margins of the event like most charities do, like I had always done. They said, we're going to leverage constituency and get people to sign a petition to win the concert tickets and gamify their engagement.
Wow.
And use this as an advocacy vehicle to get a top-down commitment from the Prime Minister, and for her to see that her voters want her to do this. And I thought it was the most genius thing I'd ever heard.
Wow.
So I said, amazing. When is this CHUGM, this Commonwealth meeting? And they said, it's in 4 months. And you have to know that music festivals need at least a year runway.
Oh, I mean,
that would be conservative. Yeah. They're a lot of work. And so I was totally daunted by this idea. And
was it just you at the time?
So at the time I said, please tell me you have a huge team. They said, we have 6 employees in Australia, which was utterly sickening. I thought oh my gosh, please tell me you have tons of money. They had zero money.
Oh, wow.
And so the combination was deadly, but their idea was so incredible, and I knew it. I blew my mind. This concept of leveraging top-down commitments by demonstrating constituency and building a movement was just so ingenious that I jumped and built my parachute on the way down. So I don't get credit for the idea, but I did execute it.
Right.
So I executive produced the End of Polio Concert. We got John Legend, and we got a bunch of national touring Australian artists. And then we had major high-profile people like Bill Gates and Hugh Jackman involved. And anyway, we ended up leveraging $118 million for polio.
Amazing. how did you, so you're like, okay, time to jump out of the airplane, build the parachute on the way down, and, you guys had zero money. What did you use to start funding? I'm assuming you have to call venues and start booking things out, and then they want, like, deposits, and, like, what was your first...
It's a daunting task. Well, the first thing that we had to do was, in this case, the strategy was so smart because we knew that we could have people sign a petition to win the tickets, and then that would leverage, value to demonstrate to the Prime Minister of Australia that, hey, your voters want this. And at the end of the day, no matter how jaded we can become by politics, like, we are their employers as citizens of our countries in a democracy. Totally. We actually tell them what to do or they don't keep their jobs.
Right.
And so I love the idea of advocacy and the power in that. And we used the strategy because it was such an elegant concept. I used that to, we pitched it through a friend of ours. We knew a billionaire, a gentleman named Sumner Redstone, who owned Viacom. Okay. Viacom is the massive entertainment company that owns about a third of Hollywood. Yeah. They own everyone from CBS to Nickelodeon to MTV to Paramount Pictures. I mean, it's like this major conglomerate of all these entertainment brands. And Sumner, the chairman, this man is worth $10+ billion. We went to him and pitched them the idea if he could underwrite the event so we could give away the tickets, explain the concept, and it was thoughtful enough that he did it. So he gave us $1.5 million in less than 4 weeks of the time they hired me. Wow. And then that was what we used to underwrite the concert and get the artists and get, all of this media. And because we had Hugh Jackman and John Legend and Bill Gates, we got every major media outlet in Australia and all the news covered it. And we had 30,000 petitions signed in less than a week, which demonstrated a lot of voter concern in a country of only 20 million people. Wow. And so we got a meeting with the Prime Minister. Our 23-year-old law student, who was a quote-unquote policy expert, went and said he gave the most rehearsed pitch of his life and he explained why it was bipartisan, why, this is something that we should do. Really helped explain the optics and how great it would make the Prime Minister look. And the following morning after our concert, she announced her commitment, which Bill Gates matched for the $118 million. So wow. It was really amazing.
That's amazing. How did you, did Bill Gates beforehand say whatever you can get, I will match? How did you get him on board with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, he had what was called the Global Polio Eradication Fund already committed. Okay. It was money that was earmarked in partnership with the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and Rotary International, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. These 4 guys have been beating back polio for a lot of years, Rotary for 20-something years. And he had said, for any dollar that a government will give, I will match it. So that was already available in the global funding space.
And probably just another chip you could use to bring them in. Exactly. Whatever you put in will be double.
That as a part of our narrative to Sumner Redstone and to the Prime Minister, Julia Gillard. Yes.
Wow. So that sounds like an amazing opportunity and such a great charity. What is that charity up to now? Just out of curiosity,
Yeah, it's grown to a total behemoth. It was called the Global Poverty Project. We then the next year did the same exact strategy, but in Central Park, and it's called the Global Citizen Festival. Okay. And now we did it with 60,000 people on the Great Lawn during the United Nations General Assembly meeting with the biggest artists in the world. The first year it was Foo Fighters and Neil Young and the Black Keys, and now, we've had everyone from Beyonce, Jay-Z, Ed Sheeran, Coldplay. Just name the artists they've probably performed on our stage. And tens of millions of people tune in and watch it, and we leverage hundreds and hundreds of millions of actions on behalf of the world's poor. And we get top-down commitments from governments and corporations and high-net-worth individuals. First year, 2012, we leveraged $1.3 billion for the world's poor from our stage. Wow! And now I think it's been over $70 billion that it's leveraged through this gamification strategy that we designed.
And so you continue to use that same strategy. That's amazing.
So now there's global citizen events every year in Central Park, but they're all over the world. We've done them in India and Germany and. They've got one in Canada. They've got this next year. They have what's called Global Live, and it'll be 5 continents. It'll be live streamed. It'll be the largest charity syndication in history. It'll be bigger than Live Aid.
Wow.
So yeah, I think it's really amazing to watch. It's like so amazing. Watching my baby go off to college or something.
And so fun. For you, once you kind of pivoted over to doing your own agency, and it's not just you anymore, I imagine that makes things a lot easier. And So what does your agency look like now?
Yeah, so my agency, it's a little boutique firm. I mean, there's only, I think our total team, if you count those who we subcontract and they're not full-time with us, I think it's about 13 people, give or take, at any given time that we bring on a project. We can wax and wane depending on the needs of the project scope and size. But yeah, there's some huge help. I have, in particular, my business partner, Jackie Bomber, she's the COO of our company, the Chief Operations Officer. She's incredible, and she's worked with me since 2010. She started out as an intern. Remember what I was saying about interning? That's the key there. And now she's worked with me on all kinds of projects. So yeah, having people like Jackie and team members like my Phil Zahn, who's one of my partners as well, these people, they're incredibly talented and they help us scale and service our clients, and they have unique gifts that I don't have and unique relationships, and it just allows us to be bigger than the sum of our parts, for sure. I love it.
So obviously you have this huge concert coming soon on every continent. What are your visions, or what are you looking forward to kind of moving forward? Obviously that's a huge one. Is there other things in the works?
So Global Citizen, in 2014, I actually stepped down as the Chief Development Officer and as the Executive Producer and started Hadley Impact Consulting.
Okay.
So now I'm just like an advisor and a friend, and like I said, it's like watching my baby go off to college. So I'm not intimately involved, other than I attend every year, and if they, have a specific need or support they need, like, they'll connect with me. But we definitely run in the same circles. Like, a lot of my clients are people that partner with them and vice versa. So yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of different fun projects we're working on. Some that are major scale and some that are small and, kind of whispered in the halls. Like, stuff that not everybody knows or don't have as much forward-facing branding as, say, Global Citizen. But they're really, really fun. One of my most exciting things I do is I work with this incredible human being and his family named Joe Ritchie. He's a retired ultra high net worth businessman who single-handedly disrupted the options trade market and made significant money during the peak of his career, sold his company, was the largest options trading firm in the world to date.
Wow.
And he now is in a way retired, so to speak, but yet he's never been busier because he's out trying to make a difference in the world for good. One of the things we do with Joe, besides that he's one of my favorite human beings in the whole world and my hero, he actually has a small little foundation called Fox River Foundation, meaning small, but there's not a lot of people working on it.
Right, okay.
But the impact that we do is so compelling. We actually do what's called nation building. We work with heads of state, so presidents and prime ministers of countries, and we help them lift their GDP through partnerships in the private sector, the faith sector, and the public sector. Wow. And the things that we do and get to be a part of and the people we meet is just like, I would literally pay to do it. It's the funnest thing I've ever done.
That is amazing. And like the scope of what you can accomplish when you're literally going to lift the GDP of an entire country it's so fun. Huge.
It's just because I'm an impact junkie, and so the idea of like being able to be in meetings where it can literally affect the lives of millions of people and decisions that get made and connections that we connect people on and things that we try to do and maneuver and help. I mean, we help design and architect and implement ideas, strategies, people, connections that, the scale of the impact is just like, makes me geek out.
That's amazing. Obviously, you're super passionate about it.
I do. I love it so much.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs or people, maybe they're graduating or they have a job and they want to do their own business or their own passion, but they're like afraid of kind of getting out and doing it? What's like a piece of advice you could give to them?
That are afraid of trying to go after their passion?
Yeah. I
would just say that, some amount of fear is healthy because, in many ways, the best and most incredible things I've ever accomplished in my career have been because I, kind of didn't know any better. Like I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I just jumped, and I built my parachute on the way down, like I described. But there's also a lot of value in being concerned and worried and thinking through all the things that could go wrong. But I would just say, take the fear and utilize it as a tool to say, how can I de-risk? Where are my fears and what are they? Are they something like, what are people going to think about me? Well, then address that. Like if I fail, then address that and what the cost is of not over caring what people think. If it's, I don't want to lose investors' money, well, that's probably a really good thing to be concerned about. And how can you build a business that would de-risk that you'll lose someone's money so you can keep your relationships. If you're, I just think it's about taking those fears and utilizing them in a way that will be helpful and a utility that will make you more successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, the biggest advice I can say is just like network. I think you hear this a million times when you're young, and they say it's who you know, and they say that all the time, especially in the entertainment industry, and it's 100 million% true. Like, relationships are everything, building trust in relationships. But it's not just who you meet in like passing at, in a networking event and get their card. It's like the relationships you build is what they mean by who you know. Yes, having someone's card and having access to them, that's the first step, but them trusting you and giving you their time, investing in you, and trusting you with their relationships is all about relationship management. And I think that I would just be interested in helping create value to other people, and you'll probably find success in this life.
For you, what is one of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome just pursuing your journey?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. 2 major hurdles I've had. One is my tendency to trust too quickly. Mm-hmm. I have a real love for people, and I really fall madly in love with people quickly. I think people are wonderful, and I assume the best in them. I see their great qualities. I ignore the bad, and that has gotten me harmed and harmed others as a result, because I've trusted too quickly. And so I want to be a person that trusts and shows up and assumes the best in others, but I've had to measure that with like being kind of, one of my mentors says, as gentle as a dove, but as shrewd as a fox, And I think there's a big, big difference. Like, you can have a benevolent heart and care about people, but be very, very calculated and smart about who you do business with and why and when and all those things. So, my tendency to trust people and then getting burned over the years, and then that makes you concerned to not trust anyone. But I always feel better by generally defaulting on a trust, So that's one hurdle. The second one, which is a little more personal, is being a working mom. I have 3 little boys under the age of 11, specifically being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where there's a big emphasis on our gender roles that are divine, and males being the providers in the home and women being the nurturers. And I just started my career because I was pre-children and pre-married, and just was pursuing my passion. But my patriarchal blessing talks multiple times about my vocation and emphasizes it heavily. And I can now see that it was my calling and my mission and a part of God's plan for me to do what I do for a living. But I've struggled so much with like mom guilt, and there's a lot of shame in our culture for women who work, and it's put on by others and also by themselves. And it's something I've had to basically overcome, to realize that, I can still be fulfilling my divine calling as a mother and be the nurturer in my family, and still be, having this other mission and calling in my life, and not have those be in conflict, is what I now realize. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like everyone's different struggles and hurdles are different for sure, but I think that there's always going to be people, no matter who you are, no matter what you do, there will be always people that judge you and try to tell you aren't doing what you're supposed to, or that's not your calling. And I love what you just said about how you came to realize for yourself that what you're doing is what God wants you to do, and that you found that truth for yourself. And I feel like that's actually something that will resonate a lot with a lot of people, and just finding their truth and finding what they know is their calling. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us today.
I love this school and the students and everything you guys are doing. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're such an inspiration to all of us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Take care.